This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
Modov's absence last week has allowed Acosta to fight back and jump to the top of the standings. But this is before the drop weeks are counted. Not only that, but unpredictability remains the name of the game, with today's event taking place at Le Mans. The draft around this long track should make it less about raw speed and more about strategy. We'll see if Acosta can outfox his rivals as we get ready to watch round 6 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing eSports network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Le Mans should be familiar to just about any GT fan, but there's always the chance that new viewers are watching. Why don't we get a little closer and take a trip around with our track guide? All right, we've got Amjad Yaman of the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Le Mans. Down the pit straight, you'll be picking up speed out of the relatively slow final chicane. Because of that, by the time you reach the Dunlop curve, even though it should be flat out, the fact that the racing line takes you off to the right means you'll need a little lift. Then you'll be braking hard for the Dunlop chicane. Those tall yellow curbs can badly damage the car, so try not to cut into the apexes too far. From there, you head under the Dunlop bridge and swing into the Chapel Rundown. Hug the car to the right side because you'll want a nice wide entry into the Forest S's. Watch out for the hump coming off the right-hander because you can lose the car by being too greedy on the power. Then you've got just a brief moment before you hit Tertre Rouge. This is one of the most important turns on the track because if you're slow off the corner, it'll hurt you all the way down the first bit of the Mulsanne. The chicanes break it up, of course, but this is still the fastest one of the 3 parts. Skipping ahead to the Forza chicane, picking your braking point will be tough but critical. Don't go outside of those cones to the left because you'll get an automatic slowdown penalty for abusing the track limits. Setting up a good exit would be wise because once again, we get dumped onto the Mulsanne. But this time, instead of staying to the left, you head to the right side since the Michelin chicane is the same but mirrored. And as you'd expect, you'd approach it the same. Sacrifice a bit mid-corner to ensure a nice clean launch. Finally, at the end of this notorious stretch of road is the Mulsanne corner. The kinked braking means it'll be tricky to get the car slowed up from such a high speed. And while the gravel on the outside can keep you from plowing into the tires, it also slows you down a ton, and that's really bad news since you've got another long straight ahead. Yet again, it ends with some devilishly tough braking at Indianapolis. Brake hard, get the car planted, and try your best not to let it swerve into the Armco. Quickly, you've got to bring it across the track to line up Barnage. This is one of the slowest and most frustrating turns on the circuit, but avoid understeering into the wall to the outside, which narrows up and makes for a dangerous exit. After a slightly shorter stretch, you come up to the Porsche curves. They start fast and tighten as you go. Bridge with that big blue wall can be especially precarious, yet require you to get pretty close to help carry your speed. Karting forces itself to be a compromise because you'd like to let the car track out, but it's best to stay tight to the right to open up the final left-hander. It'll be really bad too if you exit too wide because this is another monitored spot that delivers slowdown penalties. Maison Blanche is a flat-out nothing chicane, and now you're coming up to the pits. Make sure to practice how late you can brake on the way in to ensure you don't get penalized for an unsafe pit entry during the race. But for now, we're slowing up for the Ford chicane. Try not to take too much of that red curb and then power your way out of there towards the line. Hopefully, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around Le Mans. Adam, that really drives it home just how long it takes to get around a lap here, because, well, that wasn't even the whole lap.
I mean, it's going to take a while here for today. I mean, with everybody going around the full layout here, 8.47 miles, 13.63 kilometers. I mean, lap times in practice were anywhere between 3 minutes and 45 seconds to 4 minutes even. So it does take a little bit of a trip around this fast facility. Speeds topping out, I'd say probably about 180 miles an hour or so by the time you get to the chicane. So it's still fast though. I mean, you're still on the accelerator a good portion of that 8 miles, and that can lead to some interesting things as we go through the race here for today. Looking forward to a lot of good drafting competition out there, and I think these PRL guys can put on a pretty good show.
I have no doubt about that. But today's show, as always, is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at SIMMSA.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products create an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sportscar Series will get a ButtKicker game or two or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team in the Teams Championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Let's take a look at those championships here while we wait for some lap times to come in for qualifying. Starting with the drivers' standings, Abner Acosta, as I mentioned, now up at the top, but that is before they include the single drop week that they are allowed here in this series. Karl Modoff will come back to the fore after that, considering he's won all the races he showed up to. Christian Eisler, interestingly, is in second and not Karl Modoff. Just that one missing race took that big of a blow. It tells you how much he has to avoid problems after this week, too. Fredez down in fourth and Pisano in fifth are very tightly in a fight to settle that spot out. But we have that team's championship, Adam, with a T-shirt up for grabs.
Yeah, you mentioned Modoff there. I mean, not being able to afford any bad races. He's already told us that this may not be his best track, so we're watching out for that. Put to CL Racing Blue leading the point team standings here. SRT eSport Blue coming up in second. Very tight battle for second with RSR eSport, GTR SimSport fourth, GTR SimSport Blue in fifth. I would say, though, that once again, that these teams, I mean, the races are close enough, though, that one bad race for one of these teams can still flip these standings on their head.
And speaking of having one bad race, well, why don't we look at how this race specifically is going to go? We are in round 6 out of 10, so it's now into the second half of the year. 4 different makes that they are allowed to choose from, but they cannot switch those cars. So we might have someone a little bit stronger today, depending on which is better in a straight line around here. They have 60-minute races here in these GTE cars, but it is open setup, so you can tweak them to your liking. They will have at least one scheduled stop for fuel, which shouldn't see too much variance with how few laps we'll get today. They have an incident cap at 20. Now, it's a little bit harder to rack up incidents here because they mostly have slowdown penalties in the paved runoff around this track. But you can still find yourself out of the race pretty easily if you don't pay attention. And there's the bonus points down at the bottom that the drivers are able to earn, one of which is here during the qualifying, which we'll get to in a moment. But before that, let's remind you that we are watching this on the iRacing eSports Network. Make sure and subscribe. All you got to do that is click on the big red button that says subscribe. You won't miss a moment here on IESN. Right now, up at the top after a first lap down, Abner Acosta. He was looking good in warm-up, but interestingly, Karl Modoff, who didn't seem to be faring too well in that practice session, has actually managed to put himself into third with this first lap. So looks like whatever his complaints are about disliking this track, he's managed to overcome them at least on one lap pace.
Yeah, and Modoff, though, we know is going to be pretty quick, and that's actually still, that's actually almost 2 seconds faster than what he practiced here. But Abner Acosta still really quick out there here today with 46.2 so far, ran a 46.9 in practicing. Actually, already all these guys putting down lots quicker lap times than what they did in qualifying.
Yeah, currently the conditions pretty good here with the sun pretty low in the sky. It's already past 5 p.m. virtual standard time. This race set in March. Pfeffer, who we're watching come around, has not set a time yet. He abandoned his first timed lap, and I'm not sure. I didn't see if it was for a wreck or if he just had an off and wanted to come back in. But regardless, it's put him under the gun to get even more than one lap in here.
And we were talking about that before we went on air tonight, Joe, that if you have a single problem or you get out late, are you even going to be able to complete your out lap by the time the clock runs down? And that's going to be what Pfeffer's going to be up against here. He's going to have a mistake-free full lap in order to get this one in.
Another driver that's usually pretty quick, we're still waiting on a time on, is the number 59 of Ignacio Hortal. I'm not even seeing a missed lap among him, so he must have restarted and have come back out again to try and set one. So continue to watch Pfeffer. We're going to see how Cal Quinn can do. He's sitting in fourth and just coming into the Porsche curves now. Pfeffer, let's see what he's got as he comes up to the Ford chicane. Got to keep it clean here. The number 66, appropriate in a Ford at Le Mans to the line. Is it going to be a timed lap or is it still a warm-up? Oh, looks like that was either an off-track or a warm-up lap because that one didn't count. 3 minutes left. He's got enough time for 2 laps if he keeps it on the track.
Maybe 2 laps, assuming it gives him long enough with the cool-down time after the checkered flag. Here, I don't want to make that assumption, at least on my end, just because of seen him bite me before. But that still, though, Pfeffer has to count on maybe this one being his last one. As we're looking at Cal Quinn pulling off, Ignacio Hortal out there. He's coming across, or he came across a minute ago. Actually, I don't think he's even put down a time yet.
He has not. So at this point, we've got about a dozen drivers who have yet to set a time, and if they do not, they will be sorted according to their iRating. So if you're new to watching racing here on iRacing, that's how it all shakes out. If you don't get a time, you're still allowed to race, but you're at the back of the pack. Hortal aggressively taking the curbs. What's this going to be? Ooh, an off track for him. So he also is really got to perform this next time through. Load off now. Another Ford driver, and the number 948. His first lap was a 3:46.8, and that one did not count. An off track for him as well.
It's really tough here. I mean, it's not as tough as, say, Spa or something like that as far as the off tracks, how it is, but there's numerous places though where if you push just a little too hard, you'll get that off track and completely ruin your qualifying lap.
Watching Ken Huber. The yellow Ferrari is another one that's yet to set a time. So let's see what this holds for him as he comes out of Maison Blanche up to the Ford chicane. So far, it's been looking decent enough. But again, we haven't seen this whole lap, so we don't know if he's had another off here. If he does have an off, he's got to go around for one last chance. That one counted. It's a 3:49.1. That's actually going to bump him up into the top 10, 8th place for the number 30 car.
Yeah, that's a big move up there for Ken Huber. Still, though, 9/10 of a second off what he ran in practice. So, granted, had that practice team is probably in a little bit in draft, but still, he's actually one of the guys that's gone a little bit slower than what he has in practice compared to qualifying.
Now, here's what's interesting. We're watching Munoz. He's behind Eisler, who's now been currently sitting in 5th. But I'm trying to see if they're teammates here, if he is giving Munoz a tow. And if he is, that is a huge help for the number 05. 727 coming up to finish his lap. Let's see if he can get onto those front 2 rows. Driver's really brave on those curbs. Try and find the speed. Oh, and it didn't count.
Yeah, I think he picked up an off track right there outside of the Ford chicanes. I mean, they're coming on the front straightaway. I mean, that's a tough place too.
Munoz also did not have his lap count. So we've gone to Gak, who is going to bin it, and that's his qualifying over. What about Pfeffer? Still trying to get that one time, and there is the checkered flag. He didn't get across with enough left. It's now or never, and it does count. It is a 3:48.2. That'll put him into 7th. Not bad. Looks like Pisano also coming up. He sits in 6th.
And the
Ferrari.
we'll watch here. Sorry, Joe. The Pisano coming across
4th place.
Yeah, that's big. What we talked about a few minutes ago, though, with that warm cool down time, they got 5 minutes on the clock now, and that means Eisler and Munoz should be the last two that'll be able to come across the line and actually set a time.
That is correct. Jansen on screen is yet to set one, so he's at the bottom group, which is now down to about 8 cars that still need a time on the board. Jansen gets one, and that puts him into 14th. Carollo's slow, so looks like he is done with his qualifying. Hortal, who we're waiting to get a time down, a 3:50.3. And Ignacio only up to 13th. Usually he's been sitting podiums earlier this season, so that is not good. Cal Quinn didn't improve. Modoff looking for that pole, but he doesn't get it because he had an off somewhere. Lavender finally gets a time down. 3:49.2. Big jump up into the top 10 for him. Rame also up to 8th. Tremblay, a lot of drivers finally keeping it clean, but he's only 20th. Looks like Duhamel, nice improvement up to 17th for him. Huber going to be next. He's down to 10th place in that number 30 machine. Still a fair bit of time left for the drivers to finish their laps, and it looks like many of them are going to try and complete it.
And Huber setting a fantastic time the last time around. Still in 10th. Let's see what we can do here.
Up and across the line. 3:49.1 was his quickest, and it's a 3:48.4. But it only gets him up to 9th place, despite knocking more than half a second off. This is our last two. Already heading into the Porsche curves. Munoz now giving the toe to Eisler instead. They've swapped around. Both have set times.
Are they qualifying or racing?
I think they are cooperating right now, honestly. As they come out of karting up towards Maison Blanche. Just one more braking zone to go.
Since I know DW is your favorite person in the world, it's a little co-opetition, right?
He said it. He actually said it. Anyways, Christian Eisler is going to come across the line following Paulo Munoz. Munoz goes quicker to the 3:46.1. That puts him up into pole. And what about Eisler? Eisler does not improve, but Abner Acosta finds himself bumped to the outside of the front row in the last moments of qualifying. Wow. What a development. Let's go through that starting order then. It's going to be Paulo Munoz starting up at the top of things. Abner Acosta will be starting next to him. Our winner last round, Carl Modoff. He won the first 3 rounds of this season. He'll be starting in 3rd. Anthony Pisano, good qualifying for him to be on the outside of row 2. Then Horatio Calquin is in 5th. Christian Eisler starts P6 today with Christopher Pfeffer starting in 7th and Justin Rame in 8th. Ken Huber managed to jump up to 9th on his final attempt, and Tyler DeZube rounds out your top 10, if I could talk.
Yeah, Caleb Lavender coming home in 11th as far as qualifying. One of the last guys to get in. He is able to qualify just outside the top 10. Jorge Villegas in 12th outside of him. Robert Elder, David Guido making up row 7 for Ignacio Hertal, and Ignacio Fredez making up row 8. Row 9 is going to Sean Duhamel and William Johnson. Row 10, James Head and Jeff Corallo.
Last of the field has Jean-Marc Tremblay starting 21st and Kenny Rodriguez in 22nd. Eduardo Avila Gak starts 23rd. Last couple to get a time in: Chase Mundy, James LeBlanc, and Donald Olson in 24th, 25th, and 26th. Spencer Simkovich and Gary Schilling did not set times. I do see them in the session. We should have all 28 drivers take to the grid unless they have decided they don't want to race for whatever reason. But that is your somewhat smaller grid here today for what is a very large track. So that should hopefully alleviate some issues with traffic as well as drivers trying to stay out of trouble. The last seconds countdown here in qualifying. Once again, a big thank you to our sponsors for this series, SimMSA, which if you want to find out about the Simulation Motorsports Affinity, you can find them at SIMMSA.net. And also, again, to ButtKicker for providing all the prizes for our championships. They are found at thebuttkicker.com. Drivers now starting to grid up. Thankfully, Adam, we have a short pace lap here.
We do. And, the other thing that I'm looking at here, of course, now we've moved up to 5:30 virtual standard time, Joe, and trying to find what that means as far as sunset. So hold on that one.
Well, he's looking that up. Hasn't changed the weather a whole lot. Still 76 degrees Fahrenheit out here. Just waiting on about a dozen more cars to get out onto the grid. We'll see the tricolor overhead in just a few moments' time. When they get close to the chicane, the Ford chicane, we'll get the jets flying overhead.
So sunset is about 6:44 p.m. So we're going to miss it by about 15 minutes.
It'll still get decently dark, especially with all the trees around here that cover the track throughout most of the lap. The shadows get pretty long. You see just about everybody in. Calquin, Huber, and Eisler are the last ones trying to tweak their setups to their liking. Get out there and challenge. But we have to wonder, is Modoff going to be able to take the victory today and make it 4 out of 5? Or is Acosta going to be able to deny him and try and continue to fight back?
I didn't get a chance to obviously to be there for Daytona, but before that, there's watching a few of these races, calling a few of these races. Paulo Munoz has shown some speed here for today. I'm not going to count him out. He may be starting on pole, but I'm still going to call him a dark horse for the win here today.
Yeah, he hasn't really proven himself in terms of wins, and well, they're kind of taking their sweet time to go off behind the pace car here. Finally, they're getting going. Oh, this is weird. They're going very, very slowly, too. Munoz and Acosta back there.
So I wonder if something was going on with Calquin.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shift. And Modoff is even getting on the chat saying his car was frozen on the grid. I think Modoff had to take a tow.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good news for others, but horrible news for Modoff after his stunning start to the season. Checking to see. Yeah, he's in pit lane right now. Wonder if other drivers also experienced a similar issue, and that's why we had such a long wait before they got going. Everything looks to be okay now, except for Caleb Lavender, who is also he's not in the session, it looks like, maybe, because he's grayed out on my screen, but he's not on the grid, or not on pit lane. So not sure what's going on there. There's our jets flying over, giving us a nice view as they come down the front stretch. Hopefully come down the front stretch. Where are they? There they are, way back in the distance.
I at least hear them. There they are.
Yeah, now we can see them. Maybe the drivers are backing off, so we had enough time to really appreciate the spectacle that iRacing has given us. Beautiful red, white, and blue. the French colors. And as that happens, we've got Paulo Munoz already accelerating away, and he's not even through the Ford chicane. Green flag is out. They go mostly single file here. Oh, we got a big accident in the back. Looks like Dzube involved in that, as well as Hortal, and one more. We'll get back to it in a bit. That was messy in the midfield. Munoz with his jump is way out ahead as we battle for second between Acosta and Cal Quinn.
That is huge, with Modoff having to start in the pits. So that takes pretty much any chance he has of victory here for today. And I know the guys like Acosta and Munoz breathing a sigh of relief, but Munoz has to love this jump that he got over top of Acosta and Cal Quinn. But you also got to be careful going down these long straights with that work against him.
That's about 2 seconds back. I'm not sure if that's far enough back in these GTE cars for him to get a slipstream. One thing's for sure, Cal Quinn's definitely getting it, but he's also bringing some friends. Pisano and Pfeffer are back there, and fourth and fifth. I think they're also towing Eisler, but he's dropping back slightly. There you can see that's from second back to essentially sixth place. We might get a swap in there as Pfeffer takes a look. Excuse me, no, that's Pisano on Cal Quinn, rather. No change for position amongst that group. Everybody behind now cycling into the Forza chicane. No dramas back there. Modoff is finally getting out of pit lane. Wow. That was a long, long wait for the 948. So already to the Michelin chicane. Munoz now up by 2.2 seconds as once again we're side by side. Cal Quinn fending off Pisano. That actually checks them all up. Pfeffer under attack from Christian Eisler. Eisler's not waiting for a second invitation as he pulls alongside, but it looks like the top speed of the Ford is a little bit better than the Ferrari as they come down the straight. Still another attack as Cal Quinn on the outside with Pisano having the inside. Is he finally going to be able to get this one done? He does, and it's an accordion behind them as multiple cars make contact back to front. Looks like that was Cal Quinn, Pfeffer, and Eisler who made contact there. On board with Pfeffer now. Eisler behind actually has Ram very, very close to him. I think he's going to drop back slightly now that they break for Indianapolis. They continue to lose ground bit by bit on Munoz, who's up by 2.2 seconds now. And in fact, Abner Acosta is pulling away from everybody else. Pisano is looking pretty good, but falling back from Abner to about 2.4 seconds already. Eisler got a great exit coming out of Arnage. Pfeffer, ooh, that looks like a lift. I think Pfeffer decided it's better not to fight that hard this early on, as long as he can keep the draft behind them. Justin Rame is definitely caught up, and so has Ken Huber in that number 30. Get back onto the front stretch. I wonder if we could get a replay up of that opening incident. There's our leader, Munoz, around and through the Ford chicane. First lap through, what's the gap going to be?
Ooh, and
Acosta cross, and it's already up to 2.1 seconds.
I was just looking at Ignacio Fredes. He was in 14th at the time, hit an off track and a slowdown, and that's going to cost him at least 4, if not 5 spots.
All right, let's take a look at the replay. I'm trying to remember who all was involved here. Looks like Ignacio Hortal. We're trying to get this pulled up. This starts with Dzube, for what it's worth. And then Robert Elder is involved as well. In fact, it's Dzube who gets into Elder. Here we go. Now we've got it. We're riding on board with Dzube now. Happens in the second part of the chicane, just tips them around, and they all kind of have to duck off the lane. Some hard contact with the curbs. Put them on the back foot on that very first lap in a bad way. Back live, Munoz still holding Acosta at bay by 2.2 seconds. Pisano now back by 3 seconds to Acosta.
That's a long way back now. I mean, really, I mean, Munoz is just trying to run away with this thing, and Acosta is really not that far behind him. And I think the battle here, if they keep going like that, a battle will be for the third spot, try to get on the podium.
Yeah, which is being led by Pisano in P3. Cal Quinn's behind him right now. Eisler's up to 5th. Pfeffer in P6 and Justin Rame in 7th. Huber's starting to lose touch. All their battling really helped him close in. And I think we had an incident with Gok, maybe? Ooh, he's taking a tow. What happened to Eduardo? Ooh, he had a big incident in the Michelin chicane. Let's see if we can get the replay.
That almost looked like some sort of equipment failure, like hardware equipment failure, because he took no steering input to try to avoid it. You know, you'll see what I mean here. He drove it straight in at full throttle.
I wonder if this is another freeze up we've gotten. Yeah. Come back live. He is obviously with his toe in pit lane. So his day is almost effectively over, depending on if he wants to try and get back out. He still has time to repair it.
For what it's worth, Karl Modoff ended up pulling off and calling it a day as well. So I don't know if he just decided not to do this or maybe some other equipment failure there.
On screen, we saw a pass with Eisler getting up to 4th, past Cal Quinn, and now Pfeffer seeing if he can try and overtake Cal Quinn, but they've headed into the Porsche curves. So Horatio probably knows it's difficult to try and pass in here. Mostly single file through this quick back and forth. Straighten out once they get out of Maison Blanche. Anybody going to try anything up into the Ford chicane? No dice this time. We have had a lot of swapping around in the midfields. Hard to cover it all. And there are a few battles in there currently. I see Duhamel with William Jansen in a nice little fight. Back for 12th position. I think Jansen actually might have a good chance at trying something. Oh, but he backs out by the time they go through the Dunlop curve. Nothing doing there. Ooh, and a big bobble for William coming off the chicane. Manages to catch it, but that cost him a little bit of time. Out and over the Forest S's. Then the ever-critical Tertre Rouge, which leads you onto the Mulsanne straight. Both of them nice and tidy, and Jansen should be able to reel him back in. It's only 0.6 of a second.
Look at just behind these guys, though, with Kenny Rodriguez, Ignacio Fredes, and Jean-Marc Tremblay. Fredes might go ahead and try to make a move here.
Looks like he's going to go around the outside. Rodriguez tries to cover him off. He could be fully clear, and he is. Coming up to that Forza chicane, taking as much as they can of the road. So that moves Fredes up to 14th. Jansen did reel Duhamel back in, by the way. It's down to 0.3 of a second, but he has not overtaken him. There you can see him up ahead. Got both actions on screen. Like a very good slipstream, but it just wasn't a long enough straight. Ford chasing the Porsche. Tall just up ahead of them. Ignacio, who started this race in 15th, and again, usually one of our quicker drivers, is up to 11th for what it's worth, but he's already about 2.5 seconds back from Duino, who's up in P10. Here's another run. This time Jansen's got the inside down into the Mulsanne corner. Duhamel lets him have it. Is he going to try and get him back here on the run up to Indianapolis?
He kind of fell back a little bit there. I'm not sure he's going to have enough time here to make a run by the time he gets to Indianapolis. And he's starting to gain on him, but I think it's just going to be too little track here before they got to get on the brakes again.
Yeah, I think you're right. Oh, he's going to take a look, though.
But this is on the outside. I don't know if he'll be able to complete a move on the outside there. Oh, I am wrong. Okay. He lets him have it. He lets him have it.
Behind them, also a change for position between Tremblay and Rodriguez. Jean-Marc takes P15. What I find interesting about this is we saw lots of this battling up with that top 5 group or top 5-ish group, Adam. But now it looks like they've kind of settled down, whereas everybody in the mid-pack is still fighting. I wonder if the top group is already thinking fuel. Oh, never mind. Actually, they're side by side. Eisler just went to the inside of Pisano in the Porsche curves. That is no easy task.
Yeah, they went in there side by side, and Eisler was like, I really want that spot. I'm going to stay right here. That was a good move. They gave each other room, though, so everybody survives. It just was good, hard racing. But I tell you what, though, that really let Cal Quinn get up there, too. So he might have a say here and maybe try to go after Pisano.
Let's take another look at that pass. That was magnificent stuff. We came in right at the end of it. This all started with Pisano having to go defensive. You're going to see the Ferrari in front pull off to the side. Eisler brave on the brakes, but the outside of the first part of the Porsche curves, when it switches back into bridge, becomes the inside for 2 apexes, and that's all Christian needed. So as we come back live, their order up at the top is still Munoz in the lead, Acosta chasing him in second, but not making any sort of impact on the gap. Eisler now up to third. Pisano in P4, and Cal Quinn rounding out your top 5.
Let's see if they end up calming down over the next few minutes. But I doubt it. I mean, they're still pretty close, and that's pretty much the race in the racetrack right now is for the third on back.
We've got some information coming in, and I'm trying to clarify on who this is coming from. So it looks like Karl Modhoff apparently didn't know where he had mapped his ignition button to, and he accidentally turned the ignition off, and he didn't realize it until it was too late, and that's why he didn't take off.
You know, I can say I've done that. And I think now that we have the ignition stuff and anti-stall and all that kind of stuff happens nowadays. Yeah. So, and it's he was able to at least get I bet he was like within an inch of figuring it out before something happened, and before he had to back out of it and take the tow, which unfortunately cost him a possibly good day. But still sad to see not to see Karl Modhoff out there right now.
Side by side with Cal Quinn and Rame. Looks like Horatio will keep that 5th place. Rame was eager to try and crack into that top 5. And I don't know if this helps Karl, because apparently it seems like he's watching. Ooh, there's another attempt from Justin down to the inside of these kinks, which then become the outside once they hit the braking for Indianapolis. Let's see what this does. Cal Quinn just has a little bit ahead. Looking stronger than that Porsche. And as they brake, Rame decides to back out of it. But if it makes Karl feel any better, I've seen multiple drivers who have done team races where they didn't have the pit limiter mapped. And with the pit limiter on, they left pit lane and then had to trundle around a full lap at pit speed because they didn't know how to turn it off. So he's not the first to make a mistake of that ilk, and I don't think he'll be the last. Ooh, look at this action. Duhamel, Jansen, and Fredez all clumped together, being led by Duhamel. He's in 12th place, and they now swing it into the Porsche curves. Finally gets single file into here. Jansen managing to keep 13th away from Fredez from that. Ooh, we had an accident with Rodriguez. Looks like we don't need a replay. Just a single car spin as the 969 found himself off into the kitty litter coming into the Porsche curves.
And actually, that was Tremblay. Tremblay was the cause of that. He was trying to avoid Tremblay, who actually did get stuck into the barrier there for a minute, I think.
Continue to follow this battle for P12. Anybody going to make a brave move into the Dunlop chicane? No, but Duhamel was defensive into there, taking the middle of the road, even though it didn't look like anybody was on the attack. Interesting to see him already trying to defend. We're only a little over 15 minutes into this thing.
And actually, Tremblay, after that, he has decided to call it a night. So that is another car out of this race.
Down to 24 out of 28 starters already. Surprised at how many this track has eaten up in just the first couple laps. This is a great run from Jansen on Duhamel. He's going to look to the inside and watch from onboard Fredez. He gets a front row seat to the action. So is Jansen going to be brave enough on the brakes into the Forza chicane? It's a long wait. It's a game of chicken up here.
He thought about it. Fredez thought about taking the 3 wide.
He thought better of it, and it will go to Jansen under braking into that first chicane. Owen Pisano just got back by Eisler up into 3rd just now. Let's stay with this battle that we see on screen, because that's settled out, and we've got still side-by-side action, and Duhamel losing yet another spot. Fredez wants to try and go by. He's looking for one more as well, but Jansen's going to cover him off. They're going to go side-by-side into the Michelin chicane. He's given space at the apex, but they just barely touch. Somehow come out the other side. Jansen not going to give it easily to Ignacio.
They didn't touch. That was about as close as you can get without touching. And all that does let Duhamel here have a great run on Fredez. Fredez going to cover him up, though. Don't want to take that 3 wide right there before we get into the Mulsanne corner here.
Yeah, it's a hard enough braking zone as it is. Still hot on his heels. Fredez continues to threaten the number 11. And this time, I think he's got enough of a slipstream. Looking off to the side, this is Ford versus Ferrari, and no, I'm not talking cinema. Who is going to be able to outbrake the other into Indianapolis? A nose ahead, but on the wrong side. Fredez is looking strong, and very strong, because under braking, he takes it with authority.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do outside of that. He doesn't have too far to go before he'll catch up with Duino and Hurtal in front with. Actually, Hurtal just getting past Duino just a little bit ago.
Yeah, that's for 10th place. So Ignacio Hurtal cracking into the top 10. Not much happening there. Just an update, though. We have about 2.3 seconds from Munoz to Acosta. There's been a slight ebb and flow between those two. Hasn't been drastic, so I'd say they're just about even on pace. But for fans of Anthony Pisano, the bad news for him is that he has not been nearly as fast as those two. He is already 8.5 seconds behind them.
Yeah, you mentioned ebb and flow between Munoz and Acosta. I mean, not this past lap, but I'll read you the last lap time. Acosta ran a 47.882. Munoz ran a 47.881.
Was there a slowdown penalty for Jansen? Yeah, there was. You don't need to go to it, but Jansen had to slow the car down and gave away a lot of time up to Fredis. In fact, it's a whole 2 seconds that he lost on him. So that sort of takes away the battle for P12.
And actually, you know, Duhamel had fallen off enough of that. I wonder if he got to slow down before all that, too. But all that does is put Duhamel and Janssen back together as Fredis continues to try to catch Duino and Hertal.
And I'm sure Sean is eager to try and get those positions back. Remember, he was up at the front of this trio back when it was a trio. And he's starting to lose ground. It's about 0.8 back already from Jansen. I'm not sure if it was a slowdown. It almost looks like the 617 just lacked pace. Cars with the engines just screaming to 175 before they finally hit the brakes here. You know, I asked the question early on as we get a view of what it's like down the Kemmel, or not the Kemmel Straight, from the Mulsanne Straight on board to Hamel. I asked the question earlier on what the BOP would look like if anybody with straight line speed was going to be dominant. Hard to say, because we do have a few Ferraris up in the top 5. There's 3 out of them are Ferraris, but they're the bottom 3. They're 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's a Ferrari. Oh, excuse me. No, we've got a Ferrari leading as well. So maybe it is the Ferraris that have a straight line advantage here. So 4 of the top 5, all the Italian make, and Acosta, the lone BMW up there.
So do we need like one of those M8 memes for Acosta right now? Just, you know, the monstrous M8 behind the Ferrari? I think we do. We do.
Been enjoying those ever since that M8 came into play here in GT racing. Now, Pisano, after having gotten back past Eisler, has not given the spot back, but Christian Eisler's keeping him in check. Cal Quinn's starting to lose a little bit of touch back there.
Ooh, Rem behind them runs really wide. That's for 6th and 7th. Pfeffer, he's going to be able to get around him.
Yeah, just straight up missed the apex coming through Arnage. The good news is he is going to be able to get the slipstream. Let's wait to see if he tries a pass, and I think he's going to stay in line. Let's look at the replay here. I wonder if we could ride on board to see if we could get a feel for what happened. There's Justin Rain in the 911 that overshot it.
Yeah, and you know, and I'll tell you, when with those Porsches there, that's I will say, we're talking about balance of power, talking about the difference in the cars and all that kind of stuff. The Porsches are the ones that I think draft the best. I mean, they seem to be able to give any hole in the air and use that to suck up. Seen it numerous times here today. We've seen it at Daytona. They just do a really good job of that. So don't count Rem out of this battle here just yet.
As we rode on board, to me it looked like Justin just missed his braking point a little, because that was some understeer into there. Didn't see it snap at all, just kind of let it slide in and went through the gravel. He hasn't gotten back on Pfeffer yet. Right now, one of our biggest movers, who's honestly been rather quiet, is Villegas, who sits in 8th. He started in 12th, 4 positions up since the start. Not the biggest mover, but certainly the highest up, who's gained multiple spots. A little bit behind him, it's one more jump for Ignacio Hortal from 15th to 10th. I think we have a little bit of a sandbagger in there too, because I'm looking at Chase Mundy, who did not qualify. No, I take that back, actually. Mundy did put a qualifying time in.
Yeah.
So this is legitimate.
Yeah, he's just been able to stay out of trouble, no slowdowns, keeping the car on track pays big dividends here, and that's what you're seeing, up 9 spots.
Wow. Credit to Chase Mundy.
Real quick, we might need to go to it. I think Eisler may be working on a big run here on Pisano.
They're coming up to the Michelin chicane currently.
He's gonna back off before the chicane, but he had the good run. He's gonna try to get a little close to him under braking. Oh, this might be something here by the time we get to the corner, before we get to the Mulsanne corner. And then if they even keep close there, by the time we get to Indianapolis, I think he'll have a shot at him.
But does he want to pass? Because I floated it earlier on whether or not, on whether drivers might want to try and save fuel. See if he lifts again. Wasn't quite there, so hard to tell on that one.
It's so hard to save fuel here, though, too. The best way you can do it is exactly, if that is what Eisler is doing, is how he's doing it in the draft. Because otherwise, I mean, you're full throttle most of the way around here. As far as road courses go, I'd say this is probably one of the hardest places to save any kind of gas at all.
Oh, here's a curious development. Karl Modoff is back.
He looked at the points and said, I need to grab a few spots here.
Yeah, well, he's got 1, 2, 3 drivers that he should be able to overtake before this is done. So that'll get him at least 24th as things stand now. Director suggesting that Karl wants the t-shirt for the team's championship. Maybe his teammate bugged him.
Maybe that's something that's kept with me, even though I've been out of college now for well over a decade, is I will always take a free t-shirt.
Exactly. Yeah, every college student knows that. As we continue to follow Eisler now through the Porsche curves. Another close one, since these two have decided to stay in line, is between Pfeffer and Rem. Christopher up 1 spot since the start to P6. He was fighting for victories last season. Haven't seen him fight for victory yet this season. This Ford GT, not sure that it suits him as well as the Porsche, but he's going to pit now as we are just about at halfway. So down into pit lane he goes. This is the first driver to take a scheduled stop that we can see. Where's that going to put him back out, though? See, Trundle's down towards his stall. Comes to a halt. Winglander should only need to take fuel here and then be off on his way.
He's going to want a really good outlap here to see what he can do against Rem, because that's to be who he's trying to compete with on this pit stop here. By the way, Jeff Corallo fans, he has decided to call it a night. Had an unfortunate meeting with the end of a tire barrier, so his night is done.
Ooh, and just as we left Pfeffer, James LeBlanc, who was in front of him, outbraked himself. I was about to say, Christopher came out in the midst of a bunch of traffic, which is bad news for him, but now it's dwindled down to Kenny Rodriguez. That's the Ferrari there you see in front of him in the green and black. So if he can dispense with Rodriguez, Pfeffer has not got traffic for a while in front of him. No other drivers came in that time.
Then I'd almost have to wonder if Pfeffer will have enough fuel. I mean, surely he thought about that. I mean, I would think he would, but...
Well, he was only 1 lap earlier than halfway. When he comes back around, everybody else is going to be getting through. So usually they've got plenty of fuel. Even though this is a thirsty track, I can't imagine it's that thirsty that it makes that narrow of a window.
Yeah, maybe it's my mind just going places on that one.
Ooh, Eisler got back in front of Pisano just now.
Yeah, did Pisano run a little wide there coming out of the Mulsanne corner?
He did indeed. Let's take a look at the replay. Anthony with a mistake, going to hand it right back to Christian. You're going to see under braking, yet again a case of a car simply coming in way too hot. You're carrying a lot of speed there. It's understandable. He decided to take the safe route and just run the corner a little bit wide, and Eisler says, thank you very much. Back onto the podium for me. Love that golden hue that we can see as the sun sets. Boy, Munoz and Acosta are setting a torrid pace. It is now nearly 12 seconds back to those third-place cars of Eisler and Pisano. And granted, Munoz is extending the gap about a tenth a lap or thereabouts because it's now up to 2.9. See if either of these two come in as we continue to watch Pisano back here. Looks like Munoz is going to stay out. So is Acosta. So now our third, fourth, and fifth drivers come up to pit lane. Eisler stays out, Pisano stays out, and so does Cal Quinn.
Yeah, that'll be something if Pfeffer came in full 2 laps earlier than everybody else. I think so far everybody in the top 10 has stayed out.
Yeah, still not seeing anybody in yet. You're right, top 10 all stayed
Fredes.
out, but Fredes is in. Second scheduled stop of the day. Pfeffer should be able to get by. Pfeffer, rather, excuse me. Checking to see if any other drivers are going to elect to come in. Not seeing anybody. Really didn't think we'd see much in the way of variance in terms of pit stops. Just because the window's so much narrower around here. Looks like Chase Mundy did come in. Fred is just about done as we're looking at an 18-second stop. About 3 seconds slower than Christopher Pfeffer. Back out and past the cones. The number 96 gets that limiter off, gets his foot to the floor. He'll return in 19th place. Different from what we saw with Christopher, Ignacio comes out with nobody around him. It is just an empty track for that Ferrari.
Which will bode well for him because Pfeffer definitely has been slowed up by some of the cars back there.
Yeah, I think he's got to book it now to try and make up for that little bit of lost time he had trying to get around the traffic. We continue to keep an eye on this fight for third, being led by Eisler. Then Pisano behind him in fourth and Cal Quinn in P5. Ratio starting to drop away. It's about a 1.2 second gap. So he can't let that grow much more than that, or else he will be fully out of the slipstream.
We haven't talked about him in a while, but that gap continues to remain the same between your leader Munoz and Acosta, hanging out between 2.5 to 3 seconds back. Still running nearly almost identical lap times between the two of them.
Adam, it might seem boring from the outside, but based on the way they've dropped the rest of the field, I have a feeling both Paulo and Abner are pushing at 10 tenths right now. So one mistake could make a huge difference.
Absolutely. They're not taking it easy at all. I mean, because, Munoz knows that if he slips up, Acosta's going to be there, and Acosta knows it too, that if he slips up, he may only have a split second to be able to take advantage of it, even 3 seconds back. So, yeah, they're going to keep pushing it. But by now, I mean, looking at the board, they're still, they've got Acosta still has almost 13 seconds in Eisler. So they've got a good gap as Munoz and Acosta deciding to come down pit road.
Wonder if the lap that we saw Pfeffer come in was the earliest you could come in then. And this is possibly the end of the window because Eisler also coming in. Pisano follows. Yep, this looks like everybody's come to the end of the fuel.
Rem is in. Villegas, let's see what he does. He's coming down.
Yep,
everybody coming down this time. You're right.
So now this will let us see where Pfeffer is in the scheme of things. Same thing with Fredez.
We've seen pit stop variations in times by a couple of seconds, so we still got to pay attention here to Munoz and Acosta. See if they get released with the same gap or if maybe something else happened. Munoz is away. Acosta is away.
Ooh, Acosta almost 2 seconds quicker, though, in his pit stop. Let's see if that's enough to help him close the gap once the timing and scoring will catch up to them. Give us an accurate distance. Helped him a little bit. Guess he did not have as good of a pit in, because it's about 1.7 seconds between them.
It's still about a second gained, so I mean, he'll take it at this point.
By the way,
of course, I was just getting ready to say, Pfeffer working his way through the Dunlop right now.
Yep, he cycles back into 6th, which I believe that's where he was before.
Yeah, that's actually, but he was a lot closer to Rem. That actually worked out in his favor. I think he was able to pull about a second or so on Rem.
Great strategic call then from the number 66 to at least get himself some breathing space in that Ford. 24 minutes left on the clock. If you're going to pass someone now, you've got to do it on the track. As the last of them are just finishing up. Olsen and Schilling coming out of pit lane. Well, I guess Schilling is actually just getting into his pit stall now. Karl Modaf has still not made up many positions. I think he's gained 1 since we last looked. So only up to 26th now. So what's going on with Huber here? Is this a fight for position? Side by side between Viegas and Hortal as they come into the Forza chicane. Ignacio slips in front. That's going to give him 9th.
And Huber actually gaining a spot on the pit sequence there. I think he came in 9th.
Interesting stuff. Everybody picking up speed once again, 170 miles per hour. Sizing him up. Viegas doesn't have enough straightaway, so he has to stay behind Hortal. We still have 24 cars left running. 23 of them are on the lead lap. Not sure that we're going to see another attempt here from Viegas because he's a little far back as they come up to the Michelin chicane. Let's run down our top 10 real quick then. Give you an update on how this race is going now that the pit stops are over. Paulo Munoz still up in the lead and seemingly quicker than most of those around him. But it was the pit stops that got cut down from almost 3 seconds to a little under 2. The driver that's been chasing him all race long, that's Abner Acosta. He was a little upset that he didn't have, not upset in a frustrated way, just saw that the slipstream certainly helped Munoz and knew that that was really what gave him the pole. And Acosta, though, hasn't been able to respond over the length of the race to try and fight back. He's got it down to 1.6 seconds now. He's going to have to do a little bit more if he wants to try and fight for the victory. Christian Eisler is in 3rd currently on the bottom step of the podium, and it's really swapped around up in this spot before the pit stops. Now, after the pit stops, well, there's a decent little bit of a gap, so Eisler is looking a lot better currently over Anthony Pisano, who before he was fighting with. Pisano about 1.5 seconds back and in 4th place. He himself under no real threat because the top 5 is rounded out by Cal Quinn, who seems to have either had a bad pit stop or something because he's now a whole 3 seconds behind.
And yeah, and of course behind him is Pfeffer, who pit stop cycle actually really worked out in his favor. Surprisingly, I thought he might be a little bit behind, but none is the case. He's actually probably within drafting range here of Cal Quinn in front of him. So good run going there for Pfeffer. And going back to Justin Rem, who we were wondering where Pfeffer would come out close to. Well, he ended up being behind Christopher Pfeffer. So Justin Rem right now sitting in 7th, still up 1 spot from the start. behind those guys, locked in a 3-car battle here for 8th, 9th, and 10th. Leading that charge is Ken Huber, who you actually seeing right there, starting to come under attack by Ignacio Hurtal, who Ignacio started this race in 15th, and Jorge Villegas started this race in 12th. They're running 9th and 10th right now.
This is really our closest battle on the track now. Oh, no, I take that back. Acosta's caught Munoz. Did Munoz have an off track somewhere? Checking to see. Yeah, out of Tertre de Rouge, I think he had a slowdown. Because it was along there that he was caught.
That I started gaining on him gradually. I think I was watching that a little bit. I was watching that kind of go down by a 10th, and I think he got within drafting range and just got up there, Joe.
Let's watch from here. It's too bad our replay doesn't have a replay on speed, because I'd love to see how they compare. But it would unfortunately give us the current live timing if we showed that.
Yeah, and I just went back the last lap or so, and he never really had an off track. It was that M8 just constantly looking a little closer in the mirrors. He runs a little bit wide there on the out exit of the Mulsanne corner.
Yeah, let's come back live, because Munoz is feeling the
break that
pressure
Abner
now.
Acosta needed here. And the last time I looked at these guys before the battle, it had gone down from 1.8 seconds to 1.6 seconds. And here he is. He's making a charge.
How quickly does he fight? Well, not this time. Doesn't send one into Indianapolis. Both of them a little bit smoother. Munoz really hustling the Ferrari. I get the sense he is not comfortable with Abner Acosta being as close as he is.
Keep in mind, too, that this is the first time Munoz has been challenged. He got such a great jump off the green flag that nobody was really within drafting range of him even at the start of the race. And in clean air, both these guys were pretty much equal. This could be a heck of a battle for the lead here.
Yeah, and they've got 18 minutes to settle it out. So this is something like 4 laps to go, 4 or 5 laps left. Say about 5 laps left. So Paulo Munoz looking to become our 3rd different winner this season and deny Abner Acosta maximum points over Karl Modoff. Down and through the Ford chicane. Getting ready to start lap 12. Acosta at this point mostly just stalking that 05. Not really making any moves. Not poking his nose out, but getting in his head.
The way, Munoz was just going through the Ford chicanes there, I think he's starting to get into his head. He attacked those chicanes, very, very hard.
He's certainly looked shaken up ever since Acosta closed this down. Let's see what it's like through here. Forest S is a little bit more smooth. And then I'll come up to Tertre Rouge. He looked like he was pushing a bit. Not wide enough to get a slowdown penalty. That did get him up and away. It's 0.6 of a second as opposed to the 0.2 it was earlier last lap. Now down to 4
see that
tenths of a
distance
second.
between them drop down by a few hundredths here at a time.
So that gives us an idea of what it can do from 0.6 of a second back, and that's not enough. This one, though, started at 0.5 of a second. On the run down to the Michelin chicane. Already 0.4, 0.3, and it's only going to get stronger as he goes. 0.2 of a second now. At this time, he does weave around, getting into the mirrors of the 05 car.
Oh, and he bobbles that.
It's off track. That actually can sometimes cause a slowdown penalty depending on when he got back on. Munoz, regardless, is slow off the corner. and he doesn't defend. Acosta to the inside of him as they come up to the Mulsanne corner. It's not done yet, though. This is a game of chicken on the brakes. Who's going to be the later of the two? It's going to be Acosta. Down to the inside, smoothly off. The number 5, oh, but not quite smoothly enough off. Little bit of a bobble. And now Paulo Munoz gets right back by. Oh, and Acosta falling. Did he cut it?
He cut it a little bit too much. He got a slow down there through the Mulsanne corner.
Ooh. He's kept it at about a second.
He's got to do all that all over again, but he's done it once. He can do it again.
Absolutely. He's got the experience. Now, one driver who I believe started from pit lane is Caleb Lavender. And this is interesting because they've got the charging Chase Mundy behind Caleb now. Oh, excuse me. No, did Lavender pass Mundy? Ooh. So reverse that. Let's take a look at this pass. Guess we should have been paying attention to Lavender then. Just got a good run, got the slipstream. And as opposed to what we saw with our leaders, it was the Ferrari easily overtaking the M8.
Well,
here we come back around, though.
Now. You got to let him have it.
Mundy's got the inside, and he's got the guts. He's going to take it right back into Indianapolis. Beautiful job on the brakes there from the 12. We're now almost at 6:30 p.m. virtual standard time. So it's getting relatively dark out here. Looks like he's not going to give up on this. Caleb Lavender. Ooh, a bit of an aggressive look. Oh, and that's going to put him offline, off into the marbles. Chase Mundy with a big mistake. He eventually gets to the pavement and brings it back on course. That certainly takes him out of the tow there.
And actually, when he went off right there, I saw his car take a big hop, and at least on my screen momentarily picked up just a touch of damage, although I don't see any on there now.
Yeah, looks like on the director's screen it's okay at the moment. So I think he got away with it. But unfortunately, he's about 1.7 seconds back from Lavender. Unless he has a really phenomenal lap or we get a mistake from Caleb, not sure that he's going to be able to slipstream back up to the back. So for P9 between Villegas and Huber, they, let's see, are coming onto the Mulsanne. That's Huber and the yellow Ferrari. Villegas and the orange and black BMW on screen.
We don't need to go to them now, but Acosta is almost back up to Munoz. Stay here for a moment. We need to watch that.
Now this one's slightly closer, just about half a second, splitting Jorge and Ken. Continuing down the Mulsanne after the first chicane, it's up to the second one. Michelin looking for the brake marker, getting up to 175 before they eventually slow it down. This was where Munoz actually lost the lead before. Both drivers stay in position out of there. Almost down to 10 minutes to go at this point. Still nothing doing for Ken Huber. Go ahead.
That's one thing I love about these PRL races. You know, sometimes you end up having those quiet middle parts of the race, but they always seem to just explode at the end of these things. And now here we are multiple on-track battles going.
Absolutely. Well, and they know that it's now or never. Huber doing a good job getting right up underneath Villegas. But he gives a lift, though. Looked like he could have gotten a lot closer if he wanted. Oh, a car off in front of them. That's Ignacio Hortal, one of our big movers from 15th to 8th. Barely avoiding the barrier, but going way out into the kitty litter.
Yeah, he took Indianapolis real wide on the gravel, and pretty sure that gave those guys a scare and maybe a little bit of slippery track to have to get through.
Now, as we're keeping an eye on this, I'm also keeping my eye over on Acosta and Munoz, because it was down to 0.2 of a second for one moment, and that's since spread back apart to about 0.5 of a second. But I'd say that Acosta is now there.
Yeah, there's only a couple of car lengths between them going through the slower corners right now. And Munoz starting to take a little bit more defensive action to try to keep him out of his draft as much as he can here.
This is going to be the important one. Rouge. Let's see as they start to pick up speed. 150 miles per hour. 160. Up to 170 now. He's not gaining all that quickly, though. 75, 77, 78, 79, 180 miles an hour. 182. 183. All the way up to 184 before eventually he slams on the brakes. He did cut it down. It got to about 0.5 of a second. This is a decent exit off of Forza.
Compare that to Munoz, who pretty much topped out at 180. And this is where you mount your charge. I mean, you guys seem to be equal just about all over the rest of the racetrack. You got to do it in the draft.
Once again, cutting it down to about 0.4 of a second. And he knows, you know that he remembers. Last time he was able to elicit a mistake from Munoz just by holding in there behind him.
Don't think that Munoz doesn't know that too. Maybe he'll get a little more battle hardened here this time. We'll see.
He's going to need it, because you can see how close that Acosta is riding back there. And once again, both drivers taking every inch of the racetrack that they can, kicking up dust coming out of the Mulsanne.
Did you notice how much wider that Acosta took the Mulsanne that time?
Yeah.
He gave it about 1/4 of a car length this time.
By the way, the gap back to Eisler, who is in third, almost 16.5 seconds right now. Just stunning. For a track with, well, I don't want to say so few corners, but so few corners per length out here. That's amazing that he's managed to pull that big of a gap. We're going to glance back at 8th once again between Hortal, Villegas, and Huber. Hortal looking a little bit under threat at this point. The 101 of Villegas. He's got a very good bit of momentum, but they're coming up to Indianapolis. He decides he doesn't want to try that now. Stays single file. Could have a pass, though, at any moment among these three. Now, am I seeing correctly? Yeah, well, I guess he's not that close. So I thought Fred has maybe had a chance to get in this thing, but he's nearly 3 seconds back. Ooh. And we got a nice little battle here between Rodriguez and Elder for 17th. Elder holding down the spot ahead.
I thought Kenny was going to stick his nose in there for a second.
He's still got more chances coming up. Let's see what he does off the corner. Looking strong. Ferrari gaining on the Porsche. Let's see, is that like a little bit of damage on the nose too of the Ferrari, or is that?
Yeah,
no, it looks like that's
is.
normal.
I believe it happened earlier. Remember seeing it. I can't remember who exactly he got into, but yeah, there was a little bit of contact earlier.
Stay in position, Elder fends him off. Oddly, Karl Modoff.
It was James LeMans that he got into earlier.
Karl Modoff has retired a second time from this race before he passed Jeff Carollo, and I'm pretty sure that he would have had the chance to try and do so.
He did, however, get Tremblay, Glock, and Dzube.
Oh, sorry. Just on screen right there, Hortal getting overtaken by Huber, and they almost came together. I'm pretty sure that Hortal had a slowdown penalty. Was suddenly pulled offline. Must have been early, though. Because I'm not seeing anything in here that looks drastic enough. That's clean. Yeah, it must have been very, very early that he got that. Regardless, he's now lost a couple positions as Hortal is now in 9th behind Villegas. Where did Huber go, though?
Yeah, Huber dropped like a rock there.
Oh, Huber. You know, while we were on that replay, Huber had a spin in Forza. And, okay, this is really bizarre. You're going to see, I mean, Hortal became Mr. Postman because he just sent it. I don't know how he held on to this car and how he didn't wound up spun around like Huber here, because Huber's the one that is facing the wrong direction in the end of things. Look at this. Strange set of situation. That's why I paused for so long trying to say that Hortal was 9th, because I was like, well, I thought Huber was in 9th. Well, he gave it right back. He came back on. Instead, now he's trying to chase down Duino just to get to 11th. That is upsetting for the number 30, who is having a very good race. Got a good bit of speed as well. Duino's going to cover off the left side. And it looks like Huber is going to fall back in line. Oh no, Acosta's in. Acosta's in the pit lane. Did Acosta short fuel it?
He must have. Maybe that's why he didn't attack so hard.
Eisler keeps going, so he's probably going to lose a spot to at least Eisler, maybe Pisano. All he'll need is a splash and dash. So Pisano looks like he's going to be able to get by. What about Cal Quinn? Yep, Cal Quinn's going to be able to go through too. Oh my goodness, is this costly for Abner? We are on the last lap of the race, and Abner Acosta finds himself down in potentially 7th. Nope, 6th place. Unbelievable. Paulo Munoz,
I have
love
nothing
that.
for that, but that explains so much about the way he was going after Munoz. And maybe he already knew, and he was just trying to get whatever little draft he could. It makes me really wonder just how short he was.
And what this does is Christian Eisler, who even though he's well behind Munoz, is now up to 2nd place. He might actually be leading this championship after this race. That has got to be a huge morale boost for the 727. It's been a while since he's led this championship. He was the bridesmaid for so many seasons here in the PRL GTE series. Granted, it's not over yet, but for him to be charging to the fore like that is a very good sign for him. Man, Abner Acosta gotta be kicking himself right now. He's still 2 seconds ahead of Rem, so not under attack there, but he's also about 4 seconds behind Pfeffer. For a single lap left to go, he's certainly not going to catch him.
No, he doesn't have a hope unless something goes wrong. And it's like, now, we come from here at Le Mans to next week being at Bathurst. It's like another track where anything can happen. And listen, I mean, that's some Bathurst up in a nutshell.
Ooh, and Rodriguez and Elder. Well, Elder actually had to come through the little chicane at the off track. Let's take a look at the replay. It looks like Robert was playing that game of chicken once again, but unfortunately he would have gone off the cliff. Lost a lot of time having to take that shortcut and then giving time back, so Rodriguez up to 17th. Almost done with a lap now for the 05. If he wasn't aware that Christian Eisler was short on fuel, he's got to be breathing a huge sigh of relief now, knowing that this race is essentially his. Coming into the Ford chicane, he was flashing his lights in celebration. The Ferrari of Paulo Munoz is going to be our third different winner this season here in the PRL GTE series. Then you've got Christian Eisler. It might be second place, but he has beaten all his rivals in the points that are close to him. Modoff nowhere to be seen. Acosta falling back at the end. A great points haul for the 727. And then Anthony Pisano rounds out our podium. Ooh, he was close on fuel too there, it looks like, as Cal Quinn started to catch him right at the end. And behind him, look at this, Pfeffer and Acosta. Ooh, that was tight. Acosta actually nearly did get that 5th place. Rame in 7th in the end. Villegas over Hortal with an 8th place.
Freda is almost right there, right behind Hortal. He gave it a good go.
Huber, another one, I'm sure, upset at himself for the error there at the end. Winds up in 11th. Dueno behind him, also flashing his lights. Must be happy with that 12th. Then you got Duhamel and P13 coming in. Next battle that we've got really is between Janssen and Mundy. Chase Mundy from 24th to 16th. A good 8 positions gained. From there on back, we don't really have much in the way of battles, and everybody is on the lead lap. Gary Schilling, actually nearly a full lap behind our leader, so he's got a ways to go. That's going to take us to a quick break then. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, because on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. welcome back to Le Mans. We just watched round 6 here of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series, and it was Paulo Munoz who took the win today. We thought he was going to have a fight all the way to the checkers, but it turned out his main rival didn't put enough fuel in. Christian Eisler, a distant second, about 19 seconds back from Paulo in the end, and Anthony Pisano a little ways behind that, rounding out your podium. They were all very far apart. Ratio Cal Quinn managed to finish in 4th, and Christopher Pfeffer barely crossed the line with enough fuel. Ahead of our driver who was in 2nd place for a lot of this race, Abner Acosta, just quite didn't get his calculations right. Had to stop a second time. Justin Rame finished in 7th with Jorge Villegas in P8. Ignacio Portal climbing from 15th to 9th. Similarly, Fredes behind him goes from 16th to 10th.
Yeah, and a night where 22 cars out of the 28 that started finished on the lead lap. We go to 11th. We got Ken Huber. 12th is David Duino. Sean Duhamel coming home in 13th. Caleb Lavender in 14th. You just heard about his struggles a few minutes ago. William Janssen in 15th. Chase Mundy in 16th. I believe he's still the hardest charger out there today. Kenny Rodriguez in 17th. Robert Elder coming home in 18th. James LeBlond in 19th. And Donald Olson in 20th.
And then in 21st, it's James Hebb with Gary Schilling in 22nd. Everybody from then on down was a DNF, unfortunately. So Semkovic, Carollo, Modoff, Tremblay, Koch, and Dzube not seeing the checkers. This man was the first to see that checkered flag. Paulo Munoz joins us here in the booth. Paulo, I'm looking at your stats. You've only had 2 top 5s in the first 5 rounds. So I have to ask, do you consider Le Mans sort of a specialist track for you, or are you considerably strong here?
Yeah, this is definitely my track, I think. I wasn't this fast last season, and all of a sudden this season I was like a second and a half quicker. And I did have a lot of time to think around with the set and everything, so I was really well prepared for this one.
We could tell. Putting it on pole late in the qualifying and then keeping Acosta at bay is no mean feat as well. But speaking of Acosta, he was threatening you for a lot of this race. He was trying to challenge for that lead. When you saw him duck in, did you know that he had short fueled, or was that something that was a huge relief and you were just wiping your brow as soon as he did that?
No, that was a huge relief. I mean, I had underfueled. I had my the app I use set to put in half a lap more than what I need, and I forgot to turn that off, so I put half a lap in LeMans, like 3 liters, which is a substantial amount. So I thought I had overfueled, which I did, but I didn't know he had underfueled.
Well, it all worked out in the end, and of course this will help promote you up a few spots because you came in 7th place in the point. One of the rare few here to get a victory this season. What does that do for your goals?
Well, that was my goal for this season, to get a victory, and I'm just happy I did it. I thought it was gonna be in Imola, but here it just all came together.
It really did. Well, congratulations. Go celebrate, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you a bit more this season.
Thank you very much, guys.
That was Paulo Munoz, our winner here today. And we've got 3rd place finisher with us. Adam's caught up with Anthony Pisano.
Yeah, Anthony, 3rd place, not going to be too bad when it comes to the point standings and everything else here today, and still a good run. And not only that, you at least got to be in a battle for most of the time. Go ahead and tell us about the race.
Yeah, that I made a couple of mistakes early on, and I changed the setup before the race, and I started doubting myself, a couple laps in, and I think that definitely had affected me and how I drove a little bit. But when we went in for the stop, I knew Eisler was behind me and he was saving fuel, and I'm thinking to myself, I gotta save as much fuel as possible. So I was doing a lot of coasting, and I tried to save as much, and I went in behind him, and I thought he was gonna have a bigger lead out of the pits, but it was pretty close. And then I looked at my fuel, and I had to save like 3/4 of a lap of fuel and try to chase him down. So I ran out of fuel at the line, but I got lucky and I ended up here with you guys.
Well, hey, podium and you get to talk to us, I mean, I think that's still a pretty good night to me. But
It's a great thing.
Right? Yeah. So overall, I mean, a great race, and of course now we go to Bathurst, and that's another one of those tracks where just anything can happen. Are you going to be able to repeat the podium there?
I'm hoping so. I'm a huge fan of Bathurst, and I don't know. Usually, when that track goes official for the races, and I don't see a lot of guys there, so maybe some guys got their work to put in. But I'm confident. I think it should be a good race for myself.
Good deal. Hey, Anthony, real quick before we let you go, anybody you want to thank?
The usual sponsors. I think I've thanked them before, but we're working with someone new. We're working with a company called G Performance. Amazing high-end sim products and really good pricing, and they usually have good stock of everything. So I definitely like to thank them.
All right, well, that was your third place finisher tonight, Anthony Bizzano. Once again, congratulations on the podium, and I believe I think that was going to be it here for tonight for you, Joe.
It is indeed. That's the last of our interviews. So we're going to close things out with a big thank you to our sponsors. Simulation Motorsports Affinity can once again be found at SIMMSA.net if you want to check them out and see how you can get involved in the literal world of sim racing. And also to ButtKicker for providing our prizes for this series. They can be found at thebuttkicker.com. A big thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. Very easy to do so. Just click that big red button that says subscribe. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Also, thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We've also got social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, we've got a merchandise store where you can buy some swag. It's gsrc.storeandreview.com. We've got that link in the description below. The next race is going to be at Bathurst, like we mentioned. Another very punishing circuit. It'll be Tuesday, February 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.